Hey guys, welcome to FemFusion Fitness. I'm Dr. Bree and this is the home of core and pelvic floor friendly fitness and yoga. Today is the first day in our Yoga for Beginners series. I have several friends lined up who are helping me show you what a real beginner looks like and ways to modify and really how to step into this practice if you're new to yoga and want to learn the basics. Now, if you are an experienced yogi, you can still enjoy this series. You can still get a lot out of it. Just take the opportunity to go a little bit deeper into the poses, to really listen to the way I teach and I instruct and see how it works for you. See if you maybe learn anything new or want to fit any of my techniques into your practice. Now, I've got to be completely open and honest with you. Some people have actually criticized and critiqued my YouTube channel and my work because I tend to talk a lot. Now, the reason I do so is because I feel very strongly that you need to understand your body and understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, and really the method to the madness of how we're doing it in order to protect your back and protect your pelvic floor. There's reasons. Everything is done for a reason. And so for that reason, I'm going to be talking a little bit in these videos. I'm going to be explaining, and especially in today's video, I'm going to spend the first portion explaining some things before moving on to some basic foundational poses that my husband is actually going to help me demonstrate. Stay with me and just take a moment, pour yourself a cup of tea and listen to some of this basic stuff. Yoga is a practice that unites mind and body. So it really helps you slow down, come into the moment, and get to know your body so that you can ultimately then trust it and learn how to tune into it and learn how to listen to it so that you can then know what your body needs. If it needs a slow down day, if it needs a pump you up day, if it's hurting somewhere and you need to modify to help that area that's hurting, your knee perhaps or your back. You won't know how to do that if, first of all, you don't learn how to tune into your body and trust your body, and also if you don't really understand your body. So that's why I'm going to take this opportunity to explain a few things in today's video, and especially right now before my husband joins me for the poses. So get comfortable. We are going to begin with some basic information about this Yoga for Beginners series. First thing I want to share is what you will need. You will need blocks, 2 yoga blocks. This shape is the most common shape, and this is what you're going to want 2 of, right there. You're going to need a yoga mat, and I have drawn a line down the middle of my mats with tape. This is so that I can teach you alignment better. I really suggest if you have duct tape or electrical tape that you go ahead and put a line down the middle of your mat too. It's really going to help you know where to place your feet. I say to put 1 foot in the right lane and 1 foot in the left lane in certain poses. It really helps you understand how to do the moves so you're being safe and you're not hurting yourself, because alignment is really the most important part in keeping a healthy body in yoga. So you've got to have good alignment. The other thing you will likely need is a strap, a yoga strap. This is an example of a yoga strap. Now, if you don't have a yoga strap, you can also use a belt, just a regular belt, or even a tie or some kind of long item that you can wrap around your feet in certain poses, such as this guy here. If you aren't able to reach your toes, it can be helpful to have a yoga strap. So have a strap, have blocks, have a yoga mat, and then you may also need either a bolster or a blanket, a nice firm blanket that you can fold up to sit on for certain poses. You can also use a yoga mat that you can fold up, such as this guy here. This just gives you something to sit on, your hips on, if you are tight through the hips. As for clothes, you want to just wear something that is comfortable, that you can move around in, loose, comfortable clothes. And I want you to know the most important thing of this whole series is that really it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter if you're able to master these poses perfectly. What matters is how you feel. And again, that beautiful connection that you can make when you tune in and slow down and really breathe and just come into the moment. It can really help you tune into your body and calm your mind. And we all probably need that right now in this day and age. life can get a little bit crazy, and it's really important to know how to just calm your mind and tune into your body, and don't worry about external distractions or, again, what you look like. It's all about feeling your own body, feeling how you're able to move, how you're able to not move, and modifying from there. So what you can expect in this series is, first of all, I'm going to be using, in general, the English names of the yoga poses. I won't be using a lot of the Sanskrit names, the traditional names, although here and there I might throw them in just so you can have some familiarity with the traditional yoga pose names. But usually I'm just going to use the standard English names. You will not be seeing any headstands or crazy inversions that are really, really difficult and challenging. Nothing like that. There won't be any super deep back bends. There won't be any ohms. As much as I might love ohming, I know it might turn some people off and turn some people away from yoga in general. So we're not going to do that. Not in this series. So who is this series for? This series is for anybody who is intimidated by the thought of going to a yoga class in a studio. You might have this vision of all these really, really flexible yogis who are in these pretzel-like poses and just moving fast and quickly, and you might feel like, oh my gosh, I won't be able to keep up. This is a great way for you to start, get familiar with some moves, get familiar with the breathing technique, which we're going to go over next, and really just kind of do it on your own time and in your own way. Know that you can repeat the videos more than once. Although these videos are going to be released, every couple of days, you do not need to keep up with this schedule. You can repeat a video as many times as you want before moving on to the next. And please know that these videos must be done in a sequence because they build upon one another. That is really important. So please do not skip to the end if you're new to the practice without going through each video in the series, because they do build progressively on one another. So really, that's who this is for, is somebody who maybe is a little intimidated by yoga, is interested in yoga, wants to have that beautiful sensation of kind of slowing down with their exercise program. It's also for somebody who maybe tends to overdo things. This could be a really interesting challenge for you to slow down. This is not a fast-moving series. You're gonna have to slow down, and that's a good thing for many people. A lot of people feel like they're not doing anything if they're not pounding and jumping and getting a crazy cardio workout. But I can tell you that yoga has been the most beneficial form of exercise, yoga asana, which is the poses, because yoga is actually a lot more than just the poses, by the way, side note. But anyway, yoga asana, the poses, has been one of the most beneficial forms of exercise for me, because it's not only stretching and increasing core strength and increasing flexibility, but it's also calming the mind, which stress and an anxious mind is really one of the most harmful things in our entire lives right now. In this day and age, stress is it. Stress is what's going to get us. Stress is what's going to keep the weight on. Stress is what's going to create and contribute to all sorts of diseases and illnesses. So really, yoga is wonderful, even though it's not a super high intense workout. So those are some of the people it's for. Who it's not for, this particular series, is anybody who is only wanting a super high intense, super fast paced yoga class or exercise class. It won't be that. So I'm very sorry about that, but I just don't want you to be disappointed. So it's not for someone looking for that. And it's also not for someone who is in their second or third trimester. It may not be, some of the moves that I'm showing may not be quite right for you, because this is not a prenatal yoga class. It's not specifically for pregnancy. So I just want you to be careful and aware that it may not be right for you. It's also not for somebody who is recently, very, very recently out of surgery. So if you've very recently had surgery, you have to speak with your doctor before being cleared to do any type of exercise or yoga. So please talk with your doctor and make sure it's okay for you to begin an exercise yoga program. Regarding pelvic floor issues, if you have pelvic floor dysfunction, if you have a pelvic floor support issue such as prolapse, or if you have some weakness, some bladder issues, bladder leakage, incontinence, that kind of thing, then this series should be absolutely fine for you. Please listen to my cues and my instructions for breathing. I have a certain way of breathing that I will teach you to really be sure that you are preventing an excessive buildup of downward pressure on your pelvic floor muscles when we go through certain moves. Now, always, always, always listen to your own body. So if something I tell you isn't feeling right or it's not working for you, then you have every right to do it your own way. The other key is if you get confused and frustrated by my cues for breathing, or if you are just confused by the whole thing in general, the main thing is just don't hold your breath. Never hold your breath, okay? That's really important for pelvic floor issues, is to keep breathing, because the pelvic floor and the breathing diaphragm are very closely related. And so you want to make sure that you are not holding your breath, which can create a buildup of pressure in the abdominal pelvic area, and that can cause all sorts of issues in the pelvic in the pelvic region. Again, prolapse, it can contribute to bladder leakage, all of that. So we really want to keep the breath flowing. That breath flowing prevents the buildup of downward pressure, and it keeps the pelvic floor moving up and down gently. It's like an internal massage for all of your organs and muscles. It keeps everything moving and flowing the way they're supposed to. Now, if you have pelvic pain and tension, excessive pelvic tension, then you can still complete this Yoga for Beginners series. I am going to be asking you to do some core strengthening exercises, and I'm also going to be talking about engaging the pelvic floor, but I am also going to be giving plenty of cues to relax and release. So please do not miss those cues. Relax and release when I tell you to, and when I ask you to do a specific isolated Kegel exercise, which I will say the word Kegel, especially when we do certain poses such as the deep squat pose like this. I do not want you to do the Kegel if you have pelvic floor tension issues, if you have excessive tension in the pelvic floor. Just skip that part. Skip the Kegel. You can still do the squat pose. It's actually a wonderful pose for you, but don't do the Kegel. So again, we'll get to that in the videos, and I'll try to remember to mention skip the Kegel if you have too much tension. If you have diastasis recti, the split in the abdominal wall, you can still do this class. We're going to skip anything that involves any type of crunching moves, which yoga doesn't have a lot of that anyway, but we're going to skip those, and we're going to be very, very careful with our chaturangas, which you may know from yoga. It's where you're coming in from a plank pose and coming down and then into the upward facing dog. If you are familiar with that and you've tried that before and it felt not so good on your anterior abdominal wall, just know that I have a modification that I'm going to be showing in this program. And this is actually going to be a wonderful program for you if you do have weakness in the anterior abdominal wall. You'll be fine. So let's talk about breathing. Breathing is probably the most important aspect of the yoga asana practice. You want to make sure that you're breathing, you're not holding your breath, and that you're breathing slowly and calmly in a way that's going to help decrease the sympathetic nervous system response in your body. The sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight. It's the super on-edge nervous system. We want to actually increase the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest nervous system. It's the slowing things down, calming things down. We want to increase the parasympathetic and decrease the sympathetic. And one great way to do that is to slow down and deepen your breathing. So I am going to be instructing about breathing throughout the class, but I want to just introduce the idea of a breath pattern called Ujjayi breathing. Now, this is a wonderful thing to focus on in yoga if you remember. I'm not going to be talking a lot about it in the future videos in this series, but if you remember to come back to the Ujjayi breathing, whenever I tell you to breathe and instruct about the breathing, think, oh yeah, Dr. Bree told me about the Ujjayi breathing. Maybe I should breathe that way. That's great, because Ujjayi breathing is a wonderful way to, again, slow things down and bring your attention and awareness to this method. You're going to breathe in and out through your nose, and you're going to think about starting this by the sensation of fogging up your glasses when you're going as you exhale. So you're as if you had like a glass, like a mirror in front of you, and you're fogging it up. That's your exhale. But I want you to do that, make that sound where you're partially closing your throat. You're kind of compressing your throat. So you're compressing that as you, but close your mouth. So you are breathing out the same way, but your mouth is closed. So you're breathing out through your nose with your throat partially closed. Your glottis is partially closing. Now you're going to breathe in the same fashion with your throat kind of partially constricted. So you're breathing in through your nose but you're partially constricted through your throat. So you're breathing out and breathing in with that partially constricted throat area. The glottis is partially constricted. And again, that just slows down the breath. It brings things inward a little bit more. So give that a try, breathing in and out. You can keep going if you are comfortable with this. Keep trying. This has been likened to the sound of Darth Vader breathing. It's also called ocean sounding breath. You can actually hear the waves coming in and out when you're doing this breathing correctly, the Ujjayi breathing. Again, I'm not going to be specifically talking so much about Ujjayi breathing throughout the rest of the series, in the Yoga for Beginners series, but I do want you to, if you remember, come back to that breathing technique and definitely, even if that confuses you, breathe. Never hold your breath. So the next thing I want to talk about before we get to our moves is posture. Now, I'm going to bring in my friend Lou the skeleton to show you a few things. So one of the main drives and aims of yoga is to keep the spine nice and long. Now, one way that the yogis do this is to use locks. Now, the first lock, the root lock, is Mula Bandha. It's down at the base of the pelvis, and that's really basically similar to a very gentle Kegel. Then there's the Uddiyana Bandha, which is in the abdominal area, and it's kind of like gently pulling in the abdominal wall. There's a specific technique you can use to get to full Uddiyana Bandha, but you can also just gently engage the abdominal wall, and that provides a bit of a lock. And then there's a neck bandha, a neck lock, where you can bring your chin just slightly back, retract your chin just a little bit. Now you can feel that when you're in this nice locked position where everything is locked, you've got your root lock, your Uddiyana Bandha, and then your neck lock. Your spine is lengthened, it's nice and long, and there's space in between the vertebra, individual vertebrae in the spine. So as you can see here, the spine consists of bones. These are the bones, the very, very white part, and then discs, which are these guys here in between the bones. Now, you want to make sure that the discs have space. You want length in the spine to give the discs plenty of space. If they don't have space, then things can happen, such as disc bulges. This is just the skeleton's version, the model's version of a disc bulge. What can happen is the disc is not hard like a bone. It's got kind of a gelatinous feel to it and a gelatinous sense to it. So it can actually protrude out from between the bones. This bulge can then press and irritate the nerve roots. These are the nerve roots. Nerves come out between the vertebrae of the spine. So bulges can compress and irritate the nerve roots, which is very, very painful and can cause symptoms down your legs. It can cause symptoms in your low back. So we want to really protect the discs and really make sure that we keep the length in the spine. We're always thinking about lifting the rib cage away from the pelvis, just like a lifting up. It's kind of like s'mores. If you have 2 graham crackers, you have the marshmallow in the middle. You want to keep space between the 2 graham crackers, because if you compress things funny one way or the other of the graham crackers, it's going to cause the marshmallow to go forward or the marshmallow to go back. We want to make space between the 2 graham crackers, okay? So we not only want to keep length between the vertebrae and the spine, but we also want to keep the natural lumbar curve, which is right here. It's a slight inward curve, and then the thoracic curve is a slight outward curve, and then the cervical curve is another slight inward curve right here. So we want to keep the natural curves of the spine. We don't want to be tucking our tail under too much. Now my skeleton doesn't really move, but if you tuck your tail under too much, it actually flattens this lumbar curve and creates the pelvis will tip back and it flattens the lumbar curve. That's tucking your tail under, which you don't want to be doing for long periods of time. You also don't want to be really, really arching your low back. We want to keep a fairly neutral position unless we're doing certain moves, such as cat and cow, which I'll be teaching you even today, cat and cow. In those positions, you are increasing and decreasing this curve right here. But in general, for most of the positions we're doing, we want to keep this nice, neutral lumbar curve and then keep the other curves of the spine as well. So I hope that gave you a sense of kind of what we're going for. We're going for spine health. We're going for stability of the spine by using the locks, by keeping our chin back, by lifting our pelvic floor gently, by pulling in the abdominals when we're doing certain moves that require stability. We're always wanting to maintain the curves of the spine. We're wanting to unite mind and body, slowing down the breathing, slowing down the sympathetic nervous system that's like this. We want to slow things down. We want to connect in, we want to tune in, and I want to show you how to do that now by introducing some of the very foundational moves that you'll be seeing in this Yoga for Beginners series. So I'm going to bring in my husband and we'll get started with that. All right, you guys, I have my husband here today. This is Chris. He is here to help us with the beginner poses. Chris, are you a beginner to yoga?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Big time beginner.
He really is. So this is wonderful. We need this. So let's go ahead and start with the very, very basics today. These are some terms that you're going to hear in future yoga classes, and they're poses that we'll be using throughout this Yoga for Beginners series. We're going to stand at the top of our mat in Tadasana. So you're going to stand, your feet are right under your pelvis. Good. And you're going to roll your shoulders up and down your back. You're going to lengthen your spine. So you don't want to be so like this. You want to just be tall. Think of lengthening like you're lifting a string out through the crown of your head, lifting up toward the ceiling, nice and tall. And you don't really need to be engaging anything or really thinking about your muscles. It's just the stacking, that perfect posture, stacking ears over shoulders, over hips, over heels. That's really going to keep you in the best, most stable position that's healthiest for your pelvic floor, healthiest for your core, and naturally puts the muscles of your core in the perfect position to be able to easily and quickly turn on and fire when they're needed. So you look perfect, honey. So you're gonna go ahead and put your hands, they can face forward if that feels comfortable for you. Sometimes that feels kind of open and like accepting for the universe. If that feels like it's making you wanna lean back, then maybe just keep everything about the way you are right now, but turn your palms so they're facing toward your thighs. Good, nice. So this is the first pose. It's very simple. So you're just gonna take some deep breaths and arrive in the moment. Let it all go. Yes, good. So the next move we're going to do is a standing forward fold. So for really thinking about the pelvic floor, which we're doing in this series, you're going to want to think about engaging your pelvic floor. So lifting your pelvic floor and then gently pulling in your lower abs. So go ahead and turn and face me, hun. Okay, so you're going to lift the pelvic floor, and on a man, it's just the same as on a woman. You're going to contract your peeing muscles, the muscles that are around the base of the pelvis, sort of the anal muscles, the anal sphincter areas where you're going to feel it for a male. Female, you're going to feel it around the vaginal area as well as the anal sphincter area. It's very light. I don't want this to be a clench. You certainly don't want to be squeezing your buns. It's just a very gentle engagement of those lowest pelvic muscles. And then you're going to pull in your low belly, the lowest band of abdominals. So it's like you're zipping up, like that, okay?
Done.
Yeah. And then you're going to really want to keep those belly muscles pulled in. Bend your knees. Again, your feet are hip width apart. Lift your toes off the ground. That actually helps to engage your arches and really helps you ground through your feet. So try that. Yeah, very nice. Set the toes back down. Keep the knees micro bent. And keep that belly pulled in, and you're going to come down into a forward fold. This is Uttanasana, so very good. Now, this is where blocks can be very, very handy. Blocks bring the ground up to your hands. So keep that bend in your knees, and keep your belly pulled, lifting toward your spine. And think about lifting your sitting bones up toward the ceiling. And think about hinging from your hips. So trying to take the large amount of rounding out of your spine, and hinging from your hips. So again, your sitting bones are reaching up toward the sky. Your knees can absolutely be bent. Let's bring our feet a little bit closer together. So they're right under your hips. And now, just so everyone knows, your hips are actually not here and here. That's the outside of your pelvis. Your hips are actually here and here, where the hip joints are. Now, you can also, if you don't have blocks handy, you can also place your hands on your shins or your thighs and try to keep your back flat, because you're actually focusing on the hinge rather than just rounding your spine. So try the difference between maybe putting your hands up on your thighs, okay? And that's your knees. We don't want them on the knees.
Sorry.
On the thigh. There we go, nice. Okay, so try straightening your spine, really hinging from your hips, pulling your low belly, and now try rounding your spine. So when you straighten your spine, don't you feel the stretch in the back of your legs more?
Yes.
Okay.
I definitely do.
Okay, try again. Rounding your spine, that stretch is all in your back. But when you straighten your spine, even if your knees are bent, because you're tight, you're going to feel it more in the back of your legs, right?
True story.
All right. So go ahead and let's put your hands down again. Okay, in this position, you also want to think about where the weight is in your feet. I want you to think about grounding down through your back heels, but not leaning too far back. So you don't want your bottom way back here. You actually want to shift so that your weight is more forward. It's actually in the whole foot. So you're not all the way, the weight's not all the way in the back of your heels, but you are grounded through your heels. The weight is spread throughout your entire foot. That might mean that you might have to shift forward just a little bit. I'm not sure. It's really how it feels in your body. If you feel like you're coming back, some people do, you're going to need to shift forward a little bit. So again, keeping that low belly lifted and then just breathing steadily. All right, come on up. And inhale, hands on your low back. Okay, very, very gentle back bends. Next, we're gonna do a standing cat and cow. So cat-cow pose, you can do in lots of different positions. Mostly it's done on your hands and knees, but you can also do it standing. So you can stay facing this way, and I'll face the front. What you're gonna do is separate your feet about shoulder width apart. Place your hands on your thighs, and you are going to exhale as you lift your pelvic floor. Okay, pull in your belly and round like a Halloween cat in your spine. So it's a round spine. Good. Now inhale and yes, stick your bottom back essentially. Now exhale, lift your pelvic floor, pull in your low belly and round. Inhale, stick your bottom back, look forward. Exhale. Tuck your tailbone under, pull in your belly, lifting your pelvic floor, and then inhale, reverse that. One more time. So exhale, pull that low belly in, lifting your pelvic floor. It's like you're zipping up and pulling in, and then inhale, reverse. And then come back to neutral. Good job. Okay, so we're gonna sit down, but I wanted to show you that standing cat-cow, simply so you'll know what I mean. If I say cat spine, your low back, that means to really lift your pelvic floor, pull your low belly in, and that's a cat spine of your low back in Bree speak, okay? So come on down to the floor. We're gonna go down into easy pose, and this one is called Sukhasana in Sanskrit, but we'll just call it easy pose. You can sit for this pose on the edge of a folded up blanket or a folded up yoga mat in this case, or you can even sit on the edge of a block. You can also do 2 blocks side by side. There's lots of variations you can experiment with, but we'll just sit on the edge of this. If your hips are tight, this is really important to sit on the edge of something. So you're gonna sit facing that direction on your bottom. Nice. So for easy pose, Sukhasana, what we wanna do is we want to have ultimately the feet under the knees. And key here is we don't want a rounded spine. So you want to be sitting up nice and tall. And you're going to find that if you're tight in the hips, you can tell he's a little bit tight in the hips. No offense, honey. Because the knees are kind of up. You know, ultimately we want to have those knees down So you can probably feel that it feels a little bit crunchy.
Yes.
Yeah.
The mat helps.
But the mat helps. And again, if we had more padding, that would probably be better. So let's actually try the block. So take the mat out of the way and let's try sitting on the block. So just sit on that. Yes, much better. And isn't that easier to sit up straight?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So truly, it really does make a difference. You want to protect your back, so do what you need to do. Use the props you need to use to make it happen correctly. So the key is to sit up nice and tall, lifted through here. Let's show what we don't want to look like. That would be a hunching, yeah. So we want to be lifted. There you go. And this is called Sukhasana again, which is just easy pose. This is kind of a resting pose. You can have your hands on your knees. There you go. Good. And this ultimately is a meditative pose. You will be able to sit here in this position comfortably once you establish a regular yoga practice. So take some nice deep breaths in this pose. Just close your eyes. Again, work those feet toward being under the knees. Yeah. This is kind of a beginner version of the lotus position that you probably have seen yogis in, where their legs are really, really crossed, kind of pretzel-like. So take another deep breath.
Breathing deep.
All right, very nice. So let's go into child's pose. Child's pose is, another resting pose, but it's still an important pose and one that some people may need some modifications for. So I know you know child's pose. Go ahead and get right into it. We do this one at home. Now, your knees can be wider apart if you need to. It's totally fine. You don't have to have your knees together. They can be apart and your feet can be moving toward, your toes kind of toward one another, your heels out. That's fine. Just make your knees at a comfortable position. Now, if this is too much to be down like this, if your hips are too tight or your knees are not feeling it, then you can absolutely pad yourself up. Go ahead and sit back onto those blocks and walk your hands forward. Okay? So that's probably not the most comfortable, but you just have to experiment with what you want to do with props to help you out. The other thing you can do if you have some pressure on your knees when you're in this position is put a rolled up yoga mat between your calf and the back of your thigh. So try that. This yoga mat's a little bit thin, but if you have a thicker yoga mat, you can try that, or if you have a bolster. Does that feel a little bit better on your knees?
It feels good.
Yeah? All right. You can again use more of a cushion or a bolster of some sort. Just experiment with this. You can also, if child's pose just is not working for you, even if you adjust your knees to be wider apart, even if you use props, then you can go into puppy pose, which is with your hips over your knees, so just like that, and then your hands walk forward. And with that one, you may want to put your head on a block or two. And it's really just a matter of working into a pose that's going to stretch out your back, your lats, these muscles back here, stretch out your shoulders, begin stretching out your knees and your hips. So just play with child's pose. It's a really important resting pose and one you're going to see a lot. All right, go ahead and come on out of child's pose. And come down onto your back. Now, an important thing to tell you is that I don't want you to just jackknife down. Don't just lie down, straight back like this. That's not so good. And also don't sit up like that. It's a little bit hard on your anterior abdominal wall and also puts a lot of downward pressure on your pelvic floor. So roll down through your side onto your back. Very nice. And breathe steadily. You never want to hold your breath. And we're going to move into bridge. So bridge is another really important pose in yoga. You're going to see it a lot. And it's a great core strengthener. So bend up your knees and feet on the ground. You want to put your feet so that they're hip width distance apart or pelvic width distance apart, whatever is comfortable for you. You can use a yoga block between your knees to make sure the distance is right between your knees and between your ankles. It should be even. So then you're going to bring your shoulders up and then wrap your shoulder blades down your back. So your shoulder blades are actually on the ground beneath you. Yeah. Now hands go down so that you can turn your palms on the floor so that you're reaching toward your heels. That's going to also prevent your shoulders from being up by your ears. You want your shoulders down, but you want your shoulder blades on the ground beneath you. Okay? Now in this position, you are going to engage your pelvic floor, pull in your low belly, and you're going to roll up one vertebrae at a time, starting at the base of your spine and working your way up. Now, please do not hold your breath. We want space to be in your cervical spine, so under your neck, space. So maybe tip your chin, there we go. You don't want to be like this through your neck because that can really compress your throat, it can compress your airway and make you, not be able to breathe. That's not a good thing. And we also want that space to be in your cervical spine so that you're not really straining your neck muscles and your neck spine. So stay in this position, breathing steadily. Don't hold your breath. Press into your heels. Lift your bottom a little bit more. You can, if you're more advanced, see about working your arms under you a little more and clasping your hands underneath your bottom, or you can just stay right there. This is a very challenging pose. A lot of people have a hard time with it, so practice it. Practice makes perfect. Again, wonderful pose for strengthening the whole back side of the body and for relieving pressure, downward pressure on your pelvic floor if you have prolapse. So one more breath. And then you're going to roll down starting at the top of your spine and working your way down to your tailbone. Remove the block and you can just let your knees flop apart. That's a very comfortable pose. This is should be a relaxing pose. You can kind of flop your legs side to side. You can even go into a modified happy baby pose, which is where you're going to grab the inside of your feet. There you go. The outside of your feet through the inside of your legs. But for that, you're probably going to want to have your head on blocks if you are a little bit tight through the neck. That's a little too high. We need to play with this. So release your head. Here you go, head down on that. Try that. Is that better?
Yeah.
All right, nice. The next thing we're going to do is move into a twist. So let's go ahead and see about releasing the legs. And I'm going to have you release your head because ultimately we don't want to rely on having blocks under your head too much. Okay, so we're going to move into a twist. So bring your right knee up to your chest and hold on to it with your left hand. Now, we're going to shift your hips to the right just a little bit. So your hips are going to go to the right about an inch or two. Yeah. From that position, you are going to inhale and then exhale, zip up. So lift your pelvic floor, pull your belly button to spine and twist across your body. Now, you can, with a twist, put your knee on blocks again. You always want to have your blocks handy and available for you. With twists in general, you're going to be pulling your belly button to your spine, but first always lift your pelvic floor and then pull your belly button to your spine to help you move into the twist. So doing that, lifting of your pelvic floor and pulling the belly button to spine is going to, first of all, protect your back, and second of all, it's going to help you really move deeply into that twist. So enjoy that feeling. You want to keep breathing. So you're engaged through here, but you're really not ever holding your breath. It's very important. Even though you're feeling a lot of stuff going on in your belly and you can't necessarily breathe down low, you want to keep the breath flowing. Now ultimately this arm will be out to the side or even in a cactus arm position, so bent at the elbow, and ultimately keeping that shoulder on the ground and the arm on the ground, but he's a little tight and that is okay. So
Can't do it.
that's okay. So you can, if you're in this pose for
I have a lot of props going on.
So if you're in this pose for, a minute or two, take the time to get the props you need to pad up the ground so that you can relax into it. If you're holding your arm up in space, it's not going to be relaxing and you're not going to be able to, get the most out of it. So take one more deep breath. Okay, so we just padded up his arm a little bit more. Do you feel like you can relax into this a little more when it's supported?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right, one more deep breath in the twisted position that you're in. And we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. So you're gonna wanna carefully unwind. So maybe use your arms. You're gonna use your breathing. So exhale with exertion. Exhale to pull that leg back up. And then, very nice. And then we know that he's gonna need the blocks. So let's go ahead and move them to the other side. Switch positions. So you can shift your hips first if you'd like. There we go, that's probably better. So we're shifting our hips, bringing the left knee up to the chest, and then pulling across your body to the right. Remember to exhale. Very nice. And we are lifting the pelvic floor and pulling belly button to spine as we exhale. Perfect. Now we're gonna go ahead. Oh, look at you. Your shoulder's almost down on the ground.
I know.
Very nice. So we're really not needing much, but we can use a little bit of padding. It's nice if you have a partner who can help you like this, right?
I love my partner.
Take some deep breaths. Okay, go ahead and release. So you want to exhale with exertion. So exhale as you bring that leg up. You can help with your hands. Put your both knees to your chest, double knees to chest, pull them in, and just take a minute to hug your knees to your chest, head ultimately on the ground. There we go, relaxed. And then the final pose is Shavasana. So you're gonna put your feet down, and let's lie in a line on your mat. So straighten up on your mat, there you go. And you're just gonna straighten one leg and then the other, and let your knees and feet flop apart. Nothing should be stick straight. We want to be very relaxed in this pose. Your hands can be out at the sides, relaxed, maybe palms up toward the sky, although that's not necessary. It's just usually the most comfortable way. So think about lengthening your spine in one line along the mat. Lengthen the back of your neck. The back of your head is coming onto the ground, the whole back of your head. So in Shavasana, you want to have your eyes closed, softly closed, and you just want to focus in on, again, the breathing and just clearing your mind, sinking down into the earth. Again, very, very relaxed through the legs and arms. Everything is open, soft, and relaxed. We won't do a long Shavasana today. We'll save that for another day. So if you want to roll to your side, and then you're going to you can hang out on your side for a little while, or you can push yourself straight up into a seated position. We will just close today's video, and I want to thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. Again, our next video, we're going to make it a little bit more of a traditional yoga class. So stay tuned, and until next time, remember, eat clean, move every day, and you will shine brighter. Bye.
Bye.